then like being here just doesn't seem like it's working, obviously.
Yeah, well, why don't we stay on the topic of Grant Gunnell? As we alluded to earlier, the gigantic losing streak is just and a couple of opt-outs is, just some of the things that Arizona's dealing with right now is if things could not get any worse. Starting quarterback Grant Gunnell injured his shoulder on the very first play of the game. He took a hard hit and landed on that throwing shoulder. He didn't return to the game, and freshman Will Plummer came in and played the rest of the snaps of that game. And someone said that his injury is not season ending, and he wouldn't officially rule him out for this game this week against Colorado. But I don't know. There's 3 games left in the season. ASU after this Colorado game, and then that cross division game at the end of the year. I don't know. Like if just give me your thoughts here, Ryan. Like if Grant Gunnell isn't 100% ready, like is there any point in playing him, even if he is 100% healthy? Is there any point in even playing him the rest of the season?
No, there's not one positive thing that Grant Gunnell can take from playing these last few games of this season. We already saw in the first few games that he's talented and what he can do and what we think he can do in his career in college. And yeah, like this year's basically a wash anyway. It's with COVID-19, with them giving players an extra year of eligibility, as we know, it just doesn't benefit somebody like that who has all the potential in the world right now to play in these last few games where they're most likely going to get beat up really bad. Playing a 3-0 Colorado team who is favored by a touchdown right now, and then after them playing ASU, who hasn't played a lot of football this year, but the football we have seen them play was very good against USC earlier in the year. And yeah, there's just I can't find a positive from Grant Gunnell playing again this season.
Yeah, if there's I honestly I think Kevin Sumlin has kept this this one really close to the belt. I think he's more injured than people are talking and leading him on. Like we've seen that injury from previous quarterbacks before, where he gets sacked and lands on that shoulder. Like that's a broken collarbone almost every time. Like that's not something you're going to come back from this week. Like I don't think at all he's playing this week, and he really shouldn't. Like I don't see any value in him just playing not only this week but just the rest of the season. Like they really should just shut him down for the rest of the year. Like this definitely seems like an injury that's going to linger the rest of the season. Like you're just throwing him out there, at 75, 80% health. Like what is the point in that? Like, Arizona isn't playing for anything anymore. Like this season is done, like you said, like unless somehow they win the next 3 games, but like that is just a long shot, especially after seeing that UCLA game. Like this season it also just doesn't count towards your eligibility as well. So like we can see him play here the next 3 years if he wanted to. So the only real argument is that, to play Grant Gunnell is so he can get more reps. Well, that's not really a thing because he'll be here for 3 more years. Like you can make the better argument that it'll be better for Will Plummer and, some of these other guys to get playing time instead because, as soon as Grant Gunnell comes back healthy, he's going to get the first team reps. So it's like, you're basically, I don't know. I don't think he should be playing just because, he's dealing with that injury. And the other thing too is just like, this O-line is terrible. Like that's not something that was something that I forgot to bring up in our first topic, but that is something that, if you throw him behind that offensive line, like you're just feeding him to the wolves. Like that offensive line has just been so underwhelming this season. Like that was not something that we all expected. At least I didn't expect. You look at the guys that are on that offensive line and it's like, these dudes have all been here for at least a year or 2. They've been playing together. Some of these guys are grad transfers. Like they should not be having any issues. Like these are experienced guys. And the fact that they're giving up, 11 or 12 sacks in the 3 games and, leading the conference in most sacks, like that is unacceptable. Like you can't have that. Like with the experience and the and potential talent that's on this offensive line, like it's just bad. So like if you throw Grant Gunnell out there behind that offensive line, like it could get even worse. Like he could get even more injured. You could even make the argument that if Grant Gunnell was in that game against UCLA last week, that it would have been even worse than the stats would have shown. I think they had, 2 or 3 sacks, I think UCLA had against Arizona, but it could have easily been 4 or 5 if Gunnell was behind there because, Gunnell isn't exactly a snail, but like he's not an extremely mobile quarterback. Like Will Plummer can use his legs. We saw him a few times use his legs to escape the pocket and elude some pressure. So like those stats could easily be more than 11 or 12 sacks. So like, it's just really not worth it to throw Gunnell out there and just, like I said, just feeding him to the wolves behind that offensive line is bad.
Yeah, and as you just said, putting him back out there is basically just throwing him back into the fire. And to me, if I'm in Gunnell's family, if I'm an advisor for him or anyone he talks to um, about football, because I know, as you see with Gunnell's attitude, he's not gonna like say like, oh, I don't want to play,
Oh, he's gonna play. He wants to
or
play. Yeah.
yeah, or he's not going to say that. So it's going to be on coaching. So if they like want him to play, so like he's going to play. And to me, that's the last nail in the coffin because you can't jeopardize a guy like Gunnell who's very talented. By like, and he has a long career ahead of him. Hopefully, you can't just throw him into the just this mess, as you said. I mean, it's not all based on Sumlin. I mean, the O line sucks. I mean, it all goes back to coaching and recruiting. But yeah, like Gunnell doesn't gain anything from this, I believe.
Yeah, I have to completely agree. But I really don't think this is something we should be worrying about because I honestly don't think he'll play another snap this season. Like I said earlier, I really think this is an injury that is, not being talked about as much. Like I think this is a more serious injury than someone and the athletic the trainers have been talking about. Like, but those injuries, we saw the play. That dude landed right on his shoulder, like, right, where that pad isn't there. Like that's a broken collarbone almost every single time when we've seen that in previous quarterbacks doing that. So I don't really expect him to play another snap this season. And I honestly don't. I hope he doesn't play another snap this season because I'm looking ahead in the future here, and I want him to be healthy. If this was something, if even if it wasn't a broken collarbone and he's feeling okay, he wants to go out there, and then he goes out there and hurts that shoulder even more. Like, and then he has to have like season-ending surgery and miss a year. Like that would just be so bad. Like that'd be so problematic. And like what are you playing for? Like there's nothing to play for here at the end of the season. Like there's just no point in putting Gunnell in, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. This season is it's just a lost season, and it's what we expected to see from this group. I mean, the worst thing for this season was that first game against USC. Like that just gave me, along with everyone else, just more false hope that this team could actually be really good. And hearing the players, after the game, stumbling, that like they were like angry about that. It was weird. They were angry about a 3-point loss, but when they get blown out the past few weeks, they seem like someone seems kind of fine with it, which is just mind blowing.
Yeah.
When you lose to a top 25 team in the country, you're like act like it's the end of the world. Like, oh, we needed to win that game. And against Washington, they were down by like 30 points, came back, cut it within 20, but still, like it just this isn't acceptable. And I think that just pressure from Hiki needs to be put on Sumlin in the coming weeks.
I mean, I've heard the argument too that maybe Dave Hickey is the problem.